Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Celeste and this is Celeste Creates, and welcome back to my channel if you're a returning subscriber. This is QuiltyTube number 4. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I do mostly floss tube videos, but I also do some tutorials, and then I throw in what I call a QuiltyTube every now and then to show you my progress on my quilting and what kind of things I've been working on in that area. So I know it's been a little while since I filmed one. Sorry if you've been waiting, but thank you so much for being patient and for coming back to watch another QuiltyTube and to join me on some of my quilting adventures. So today I want to show you what I've been working on and some things I've bought and a couple things that I pre-ordered and I'm really excited about. And then towards the end, I have filmed a sewing, I'm going to call it a sewing room tour, but it's not really a room, it's maybe a third of a room. So I have a third of the game room upstairs is mine. And so I'll give you a tour of that at the end, so stay tuned for that. And so let's get busy. As always, I love your comments. I love answering your questions. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment box and I will do my best to respond to those. And so let's get started with what I've been working on. So if you've watched my other QuiltyTube, I believe it was either 2 or 3, I think it was number 3, or if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am a huge Lori Holt fan. I have made many of her quilts. I have all her books. I have, you know, buckets of her fabric. Lori Holt quilts are my favorite quilts to make. So it has been fun lately. I had started a quilt maybe a year or 2 ago. I decided that I was going to I made the cover quilt from the first Farm Girl Vintage book, and that hangs downstairs. And I had decided I wanted to make the cover quilt for the Farm Girl Vintage too. And I believe when Lori started the quilt along, I was on track and making blocks and doing a great job, and something happened and I fell behind and set it aside. And so I've had a lot of blocks done and sitting in my drawer, and recently I thought I'm really ready to get those done. I don't have many left to do. These are my favorite blocks to piece in the whole world, and so I pulled them back out and I've been making a little progress on my Farm Girl Vintage 2 blocks. So let's see, what have I added in the last week or 2? I was already almost done with the 12-inch blocks, and so I had to sort through my blocks and make sure I had checked off all the ones that I had really done. And then I realized I only had one more 12-inch block to complete, and that was this block called Tending the Garden. That cute watering can with the flower. So that was my last 12-inch block to make. So I have all those done, and you'll get to see them all. I think I showed some of them in a previous video, and of course I will get to show you that when I have the whole quilt finished and you can see the quilt top. So that's called Tending the Garden. That was a lot of fun. And then after that, I really had an assortment of the smaller 6-inch blocks that I needed to complete. And so I did, I think this one was called Starry Nights. And I did those in 2 colors of blue. And this is totally scrappy. All my backgrounds are scrappy. So as you'll see in the small blocks I'll show you, not necessarily, I don't have the same background fabric for all of these. It may use the same one twice, but for the most part I've gone really scrappy. Then I needed to make, the pattern called for 2 of these, and this was, let me look. That was the sisters. Yes. No. Let me get that right. Very nice. This, it called for you to make 2 of the Spring Blossom block. So there you can see that both of those have 2 different backgrounds. So that's the Spring Blossom. And then this one here is the Sisters block. and you needed to make 2 of those. And this I did do with both with the same background with a Swiss dot. So that's the sister's quilt block. So I've made those, and then I have cut the sewing baskets block. And so if you watch Lori Holt's quilting videos and floss tubes, you can see she uses her design boards all the time. This is actually one of the design boards that my friend Casey made me, and you know, it's full of little threads and everything. I use these all the time. I really would like to make some more of my own. Actually, I like some of the bigger ones. But these are all my pieces cut out to make the, just hold up a picture here, sorry, the sewing baskets block. So that one's next, and I may only have 3 or 4 after that to finish all of the blocks and complete the quilt top. So I am looking forward to that. So been working on that one. And then I got this started the other day. Pardon me. Again, Lori Holt has, I'm sorry for shaking the table. Lori Holt has all kinds of wonderful block tutorials on her YouTube channel and on her blog, and recently she showed a video for creating her it was an easy broken dishes block, and she showed you how to make it, and she was using smaller squares, and I've done some of those and I really like making them. They turn out so cute. And so then I started I was like, oh, I really want to make some of those broken dishes blocks, and with Lori Holt's method. And I had, just sitting over here on my shelf, I had a stack of Japanese, really bright colored Japanese prints that had been cut into 5-inch squares and sitting in a stack for who knows how long. And I love them. I want to make something out of them, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with them. I cut them without a plan. And then I started thinking, well, if you can make, Lori says you can make these easy broken dishes blocks in really with whatever size squares you want, as long as your squares are all the same size. So you can do it with 2-inch squares or 2.5 or 4-inch squares, as long as everything's the same. So I thought, well, why can't I do that with the 5-inch squares that I already had cut? So I started playing around with it, and then I started having fun, and then I sorted it all, and so I made 4 blocks. I showed a picture of this on my Instagram account. If you don't follow me, I'm Celeste Creates on Instagram, and it is a private account, but just ask me, and most of the time, if you don't look like a creepy guy, I'll let you follow me. So this is what was in the stack. This is a make-do design board I made, and so here they are. I have them all sorted into groups of 4. So here's one group of 4. So that's just 2 of each print, so that's 8 squares there in that grouping. Here, I'll show you another one. So I had fun just pairing these together and laying them out. There's another group of 4 prints. So those are all laid out here in groups on my design board, so I can grab a set and start chain piecing those and make blocks when I want to sit down. And so far I made 4 of them that day that I was playing around with them, and so here's what they turn out to look like. Lori's broken dishes, her easy broken dishes blocks, include a background fabric. So in her blocks, like say this one would be a background and this would be a background fabric and the others would be colors. But as you can see, it works with 4 different colors instead of 2 different backgrounds and 2 different colors. I encourage you to go watch that video. Actually, I encourage you to watch all her videos. They're so fantastic. So this is what I came up with. So here's my big easy broken dishes blocks. So there's one. These are so fun and bright and cheerful. I absolutely love these. This is going to make a really fun quilt. I forget how many sets I was able to get out of the stack, but it'll make a nice size quilt. Maybe 20. And there's the 4th one. Aren't those fun? So stay tuned, and I'm going to keep making some more of those and make a whole quilt top out of those. And then kind of as an aside, and I really should be doing something with these already, but on my ironing board here, these are the parts that get cut off of the Easy Broken Dishes blocks. These are the leftovers that get cut off, and so you know, I want to sit down and do something with these too. So what I will do yet, I am not sure whether I'll make half square triangles or so. I don't know. I could sew a seam and cut a little 2-inch block. We'll see. But I will definitely make use of those scraps. Even if the scraps just get cut and put into my basket, that will get done. So I've been working on those. Then the other one that I worked on since you last saw me was my Shine On quilt. So this is a quilt pattern by Monty and Camille. Sorry that I only have a black and white printer. It is called this is called Hello Sunshine, and it's a really cute rainbow quilt. I'll insert a picture here of what the quilt top will look like. And I got started on this. It is all completely cut out. I've got a good bit of it pieced, but it was annoying me, and so I set it aside and put it in timeout, and I will definitely get back to it, but it needed to go bye-bye for a little while. So I did get some work done on that, but not anything I can really show you. It's kind of in pieces all over the place. So one of my purchases I made recently was this really neat pattern from Prairie Grass Patterns. I love medallion quilts, and I really loved the different blocks in this medallion quilt. And so I believe this just came out not too long ago. Well, 2020. And so this is Prairie Grass Patterns Midnight Medallion, and I really would like to do one completely scrappy. And so it's not a hard quilt, but it is a little more challenging than you think. So I bought the pattern, and I just got all into it and started making one. So I don't always trim up my blocks. Most of the time my blocks are pretty close and good enough, and I can make them all fit together and it's gonna work, and you never know the difference. But what I figured out as I was kind of zipping along through this midnight medallion that I was attempting to make is that you really have to trim everything, or your medallion isn't going to fit together as it grows through the different layers and levels, you know, as you go out along the bands. So I got part of it done, and then I abandoned ship because I realized that I was just rushing through it and not trimming and trying to make it fast, and it wasn't working. So I put this was as far as I got, and I do like it. I like it a whole lot, but it's pretty, you can't really tell from far away. So what is it? Riding on a horse backwards? I don't really know the saying. At 60 miles an hour, you're not going to notice. But I decided to stop here because it was getting, it wasn't laying flat, and it was getting wavy as it went out. So I stopped, put the brakes on, and paired it. I have some of this yardage here. It's a flour sugar fabric. I have some yardage of that. I had enough to make a backing for it, and I'm just going to quilt this as is and make a small quilt or a table topper, and it'll be just fine. But if I had continued in the manner that I was going, it would have gotten worse and worse. So note to self, note to viewers, sometimes you really do need to trim your blocks and be extra careful. So lesson learned. So I believe that's all I've been working on, and so next I just want to show you a few purchases. Okay, purchases. So one thing I just showed you was this Midnight Medallion pattern by Prairie Grass Patterns, and I bought this off of April Rosenthal's own website, I think. Maybe not. Another pattern I bought that I saw recently, it's a new pattern from another favorite quilt designer, Cluck Sew. And this pattern is called Picnic, and let me insert a color picture of what the cover looks like. Looks so fun. It says it's fat quarter friendly, and it has a bunch of different sizes. So depending on how many fat quarters you want to do, you can make a crib, a lap, a throw, a twin, a queen, a king. So this just looks really fun. I don't know quite what I'm going to do with it yet, but I really love the pattern and thought it'd be a lot of fun to put together. So look for that in the future. Again, that's Picnic by Cluck Sew. She has tons and tons of cute patterns, and they're really well written patterns. I really like them, so you can check her out. I did buy this book off of Amazon. This is a new book published by Martingale, a moda book from Lisa Alexander. It is called Scrap School, and I really liked several of the quilts in this book, so I decided to go ahead and get this book. I believe I just ordered this off of Amazon. And let me show you a few of the ones that I really love in here. Right. Just pardon me. I really love this one. This is called Scrappy Dots and Dashes. Love that quilt. That is right up my alley. This is designed by Lisa Bonjean. Really love that one. Like I said, there's quite a few in here I love. Hold please, so you can see the good stuff. I love this one too. This is called County Fair, and this one is designed by Amy Smart. Really fun. Another one, and she is one of my favorite, Amanda Jean Nyberg. I followed her blog when she started it many years ago and had so much fun watching her progress. And so she has a quilt in the book, another one that I just love. I really love basic scrappy quilts like this. That's called Two Step. Okay, let's see. This one is called It All Adds Up. A lot of fun. A little more complicated, not complicated, but a little more labor intensive, but really fun. Especially with as many blues as I have. That would be a fun one. And then this is probably my favorite. This is designed by Lisa Alexander, Moda Lisa. And that one is called Hidden Blocks. And there truly are hidden blocks in there. Depending on the way that you look at the quilt, you see different things that stand out to you. A lot of fun. I really love that one. So that's on my list. So really fun book, Scrap School. They have several of these. There's another, I think there's a Sisterhood of Scraps, and I don't have that one, but that looks really fun too. So great book. So then I was online, and someone had been doing a coral and blue quilt, putting together a coral and blue quilt, and it just was really beautiful. And so I went to the website where these were being offered, and I bought this beautiful bundle of soft blues and corals. So I'll be making a quilt out of that. Not sure what yet. Then I just happened to be roaming around Hobby Lobby and I saw these 2 bundles on an end cap and really fell in love with those. Look at those cute, these are wovens, homespun. So I think these would be really fun to put up and cut up and put into a patriotic quilt. Here's the tag, Hobby Lobby tag. You can see that. Homespun fat quarter bundle. I just love those and think those would make just a simple, fun, patriotic quilt. So I guess the last thing I've been really thinking about lately is, I know I've shown this before, but I have this gorgeous, you know, fat quarter bundle. I pretty much always buy a fat quarter bundle of Lori Holt's fabrics, and this is her flea market fabric that I bought, and it's been sitting on my shelf, and I've kind of been waiting for the right thing. I love Lori's prints so much, and sometimes I just want to see the prints. I don't want to cut them up to death and lose how pretty they are. And so I have actually had this quilt, gosh, this may be 2008. I've had this quilt printed and in my binder from allpeoplequilt.com, and it is called Pink Bliss. You can kind of see it there. And these were done with really beautiful Amy Butler fabrics. And I've always loved this quilt and just how neat it is to showcase all the prints. I really love quilts that don't have backgrounds. So I love a quilt that I can take a complete fat quarter bundle and cut it up and just use the fat quarters, or just use the fabric and no background to make a quilt. So that's always fun. So I'm kind of wondering if this is what I want to do with my flea market bundle. There's that part of me that doesn't want to cut it up at all and just add it to my fabric stack, but I know I would love a quilt out of this. So that is a plan I'm thinking about. So that, and I have 2 quilt kits that I pre-ordered. So I haven't ordered a quilt kit or done a block of the month in a very, very long time. I normally don't do quilt kits. I would prefer to buy the fabric, make the pattern, or just buy fabric and use it for what I want. But I really, really wanted to do both of these quilts, and so I went ahead and pre-ordered the quilt kits from Fat Quarter Shop, and one of them is Lori Holt's upcoming quilt called My Happy Place. Let me insert a picture there. It's another combination pieced block and applique block quilt. I've done several of her applique quilts and I do enjoy it, and I'm really ready to do another one. And this looks so much fun, and I think it would be an awesome, awesome quilt to hang in my game room here, near my sewing room, near my sewing area. And so I pre-ordered that kit from Fat Quarter Shop, and I will be doing that quilt. And I think my friend April from April_heirlooms, she's going to be doing that one as well. And then it will be delivered later in the year, but I also pre-ordered the kit called Chicken Salad from one of her from her cookbook line that's coming up. So here's a picture of what the chicken salad quilt would look like. She showed these in a recent video that she did on her YouTube channel, where she kind of went through her upcoming fabrics and patterns and notions, and I love that chicken quilt. So my mom always had a thing for chicken stuff. I love birds and chickens, and I love those chickens. They're cute and fat and have such personality, and I love them. And each chicken applique block has a name as well, and I'm really tempted to hand embroider the name of each chicken underneath it. It's just so cute. And then I love the fact that the pieced blocks and borders surrounding the chickens are low volume prints from her cookbook line, and so I really like that too. I think it's going to make a really different looking quilt, and so I'm excited about that. So I think that's all I have to share with you about what I've been working on and what I have coming up and what I'm excited about. I love quilting. Sometimes it's, you know, I don't quilt as much as maybe I used to. I love doing stitching as well now, cross stitching. And so it's easy to sit down and relax with that in the evening. But I still love quilting and I get excited about it, and I love making quilts. I love having all our quilts. We use them day in and day out. And so it's just, they're a part of who I am as well. And so thanks for watching. So stay tuned here. And what follows is my sewing room tour. As I said earlier, I don't really have a sewing room. I probably have a sewing third of a room. We have a large game room upstairs, and I have about a third of that, and that's where I sew and create and store all my stuff. It's not a big space, but I make use of my space, I think, well. And so I think it's fun to look and see what everybody's sewing room, or what things look like, and what they have, and how they use their space. And so that's what's coming up next. Again, thank you for joining me for this QuiltyTube, and I hope you enjoyed the sewing room tour, and I will see you back hopefully in another month or so for another QuiltyTube. Bye. Have a blessed day, blessed month, and enjoy your quilting. Bye. This right here obviously is the hub of all my quilting activity. This is my machine that I use for everything. It's a Janome 1600P. I absolutely love this machine. It is heavy. It is a workhorse. You can see it has no special stitches, nothing fancy and digital. It doesn't even do a zigzag. But it is strong, it is fast, it is heavy duty, and it meets all my needs every day. I absolutely love it, and I would either, you know, if it was beyond repair, I would buy another one in a heartbeat. I keep these little snips nearby. Those are my favorite for snipping threads as I quilt. I have a light right here attached with a sticky thing. I bought this on Amazon. I can link that below. A little LED light that shines on the workspace, because the light that's under the arm here isn't really powerful, and so I need all the light I can get. And then off to the side here I have the little sewing mat that's from Lori Holt's Quilty Fun book. I made this ages ago, and it is always right here to the side, and I keep things in the pockets. Let me come through a little closer and I can show you. Of course, there's a little metal tin for my little threads, and then a magnetic pin bowl with my favorite pins for piecing, nice long glass head pins. That's exciting. That's my Bible and a box of Kleenex, but I need them. So in the pockets here of my thing, I keep, in this pocket, I keep my wound bobbins of white. This is where I drop my empty bobbins once they come off. I like to wind a bunch all at once. Here is the pocket where I keep my extra needles. I've got the quilting needle when I do my free motion quilting, and then I got a universal needle that I use when I'm just stitching or just piecing. My absolute very favorite seam ripper ever. I hate holding on to those teeny tiny ones. I love how this one feels in my hand. That's always right there. And then this last one holds the couple of sewing machine feet. Oops. Please. The couple of sewing machine feet that I use often in the screwdriver. This one right here is the zipper fit. So when I'm making bags, I use that one. And then this plate combined with this foot is how I free motion quilt. So my machine doesn't allow you to drop the feed dogs. You actually have to cover the feed dogs with this plate. It's a thicker plate. and you use this darning foot or open toe foot. I've seen it called different things, and that's how I do my free motion quilting. And a trash can. And so that is my setup for my machine. I have the extension table on it, and then next to it I have a table, and it's always full of things I'm working on. This table sits next to my sewing machine, and it has been many things over the years. It was an end table, it's been all kinds of things. These are some current projects. I have a fall quilt on these 2 levels that I'm working on. This is my paper piece log cabin. This is another miscellaneous one I need to get back to. And then down here, for the most part, these are finished quilts with or without backing that need to be quilted. And then under here, this is another quilt in progress, kind of all laid out, neat and labeled. This is my Shine On quilt that I put in timeout for a little bit because I was kind of tired of it. But it'll come back out and it'll get work done, so I leave that all nice and organized, and those actually just slide right under there. So I'm always looking for creative ways to make do with what I have and make that work for me. So this is another place where I spend an awful lot of time in my quilting area. I hope it's not too much of a glare because I wanted you to see how it's set up. But this is the other piece of the desk. The part that my sewing machine on is the lower part of the desk that actually would slide under this. And this is the higher part. And on it I have my ironing board surface. This is a large, thick piece of plywood that I've covered with batting and fabric, and used a staple gun to staple it underneath, and this is where I do my ironing. I don't have a traditional ironing board right now. I just don't use it very often and kind of let that go. So you can see, and I've also got some items stored below. I'll show you that in a few minutes. But I change out the cover to my ironing board pretty often when it gets yucky. This is some fun Lori Holt decorator weight fabric that I have on there right now, and it's just perfect and I love it. And to the side here I have the file cabinet piece that came with this desk, and in it I just store some odds and ends, nothing fancy. I have my cross stitch patterns on top, my orange handled scissors that I use all the time, and that's where my iron rests. Just things on here too that make me happy. My statue and my picture of Mary. A little container here with some notes for cutting my strips for my log cabins. A Bluebell ice cream container that acts as a trash container. Some colored pens and my zippers that I have right now. And my iPad and speaker for watching FlossTube and other tutorials, and just photos and a little doll I made in a future project there. Hopefully this isn't too boring. You can kind of see under here is some more storage. And this right here is a little stool that my son made for me to put my feet on when I'm sitting at my desk, maybe stitching or working or trimming. It helps my feet, so he made that for me. I thought that was really cute, and I use it. I have some more storage over here. This is a box full of selvage, fabric selvages that I use to make items with. I have some of these 12-inch Sterilite drawers that I store projects in. There's one missing up here because I'm going to show you that in my video. Here's a quilt in progress, little maple leaves. So I store that with the pattern and everything. These are my the Lori Holt quilt. Why can't I think of it? It's the bake sale one. Let's Bake. These are the ones that are waiting to be made. So I have all these in bags. I think I showed you that on a previous one. And they're ready to be made. That's a drawer. These are the bake sale blocks that are already done. There's another quilt that I've been working on. I haven't worked on it in a while, but it's a lot of fun. scrappy and fun. So I look forward to getting back to that. And then here's a quilt that I haven't cut out yet and prepared. But I've got all the supplies in that one drawer since I have everything all together, and so it'll be a fun one to work on. Up here, it's a little hard to see. This is a fun item to have. This is a little travel ironing surface that I made for myself. Take it on a quilt retreat with some cute Lori Holt panel. One of those, and then over to the side I have a smaller cutting mat and some bigger rulers that I store off to the side. So this is station number 3 that I would say gets tons of use. This is my cutting table up against a wall, and if you can see, it is a couple of cabinets from my sister's old kitchen that are joined together up here, and I bought a piece of pre-cut, maybe 4 feet long Formica that comes just at Home Depot or Lowe's, and that sits on the top. I really, really love a countertop height cutting surface. It's the most comfortable where you don't have to bend over. So that's what I prefer, the height I prefer to cut on. And so if I ever had more space, I think I would just do the same thing. I would have some more cabinets on the back side if I had it in the middle of the room and make a full piece on top. So I have my Lori Holt cutting mat from Fat Quarter Shop. I have my 2 long rulers that I use all the time. A light, another pin bowl, trash, and then a cute antique container that I bought in Utah when I went for a Lori Holt retreat at an antique store that keeps pens and pencils and turners and a little ruler in it, and I use those things quite often. Usually this is not the cleanest spot, but I try and keep it tidy because I work here a lot. You can see right here, this is my current, the next block I'm making on my Farm Girl Vintage 2 sew along that I need to finish. And then, oh, another light. And oftentimes I have little papers hanging up. I have a couple of quilt along schedules. This is a list of quilt whips that I need to finish. This is the Let's Bake schedule. This is my list of Farm Girl Vintage 2 blocks that I'm working on, and check off the ones that I need to complete. And above is a little wooden shelf that I've had for as long as I can remember, and it is full of things I use all the time. A little Longaberger basket up there, pinned to the wall with odds and ends in it, and a quilt I made a very, very long time ago. So on my, move my light here, on my shelf, which is dusty, excuse the dust, this right here is my box of pins for layering and pinning a quilt. And then I think I bought that off of eBay or something. That's my favorite little Fisher Price memory there. A vintage container, icebox refrigerator dish with odds and ends, pin cushions, needles I use all the time, Lori Holt crochet thread. This is just an office container, a plastic office container, and these are all my rulers that I just use all the time. This is a roll of upholstery thread that I use for finishing cross stitch. These are my handmade alphabetties. They sell the real alphabetties on Fat Quarter Shop, but I made my own. Clips, Wonder Clips, Clover Wonder Clips that I use for all kinds of things. Rotary cutters, more odds and ends. Cute little vintage pin cushion I made. Buttons. These are my smaller pins that I like to use for applique, pin cushions, glue. So just all my stuff that I reach for all the time is right there. You can kind of see that. And I am going to move over next door to that. I have, you can see, this cabinet was my parents' in my house growing up. This is my parents'. It was a stereo cabinet from Ethan Allen, and that top lifts up, and the record player was there. So I had that from my parents' house, and down below, I use it just for all kinds of odds and ends storage. Actually, my other machine is actually stored in this cabinet, and it's an older Kenmore. It was the one I owned before the one I use now, and I save it really just because it can do zigzag, and sometimes I need that for batting or zigzagging the edge of my linen for cross stitch. But so it's not real interesting in there, just a lot of junk. Right here I store a little basket I found with some of my cross stitch whips. And these 3 bins right here, these are all my Lori Holt fabrics except for the whites. I didn't have room to put them up here, they're over on my other shelf. All my very favorite Firm Girl Vintage Christmas, all my Lori Holt books. And I just love having those out all the time so I can see them. This right here is fabric, the beginnings of the fabric for my daughter's graduation quilt. I get a lot of questions about my wall. One, there is this is my little shelf I bought off of Amazon that I store all my DMC and threads on that I'm not using. And that cute little tulip above it, a friend made me. And then I just have lots of quilts on my wall here. The pineapple quilt is a gift from a friend. This one I just made with scraps from a Lori Holt bake sale fabric. This is a sewing machine. See, I've got a quilt block clipped in that I want to remember to do. I can link to this below. I made that. That may have been a Fat Quarter Shop little quilts along thing from a long time ago. This was a gift from a swap I did. This is a little mini Dresden I made. This was from a friend. This is some vintage embroidery that I did and put up here. This I think was, I'd have to look up which little sew along that was, but those letters were available online and I made a C for Celeste, and it's some strip pieced vintage happy because it's like my favorite fabric line ever. So that's my wall. And then how it all looks, a view of how it's all laid out. I'll go over to that shelf here in just a minute, which you can kind of see. And yes, there's the Legos. So let's go over to my fabric. This shelf is also a hand-me-down. I think I have 2 more in a closet that I store school stuff on for the kids, and then this one holds my fabric. So up on top I have a Longaberger basket, and that's got my mom's yo-yos in it that she made. The polka dot basket is actually full of leftover binding pieces, and sometimes I'll rifle through there and get binding for a if I want to do a scrappy binding or I'm looking for a particular color. So I keep all my leftover binding that I had too much of. It's my mom's black patent leather purse and a little dish. And in those bins there, you can kind of see that they're labeled, and I have different, I have felt, I have Christmas fabrics, embroidery fabric, interfacing, different types of white fabric. So again, just drawers for storage. This shelf right here holds some of my longer pieces. I don't have a whole lot of yardage, but these are some yardage pieces here. This is all my white background and low volumes that are not Lori Holt. So everything on this shelf is not Lori Holt. I have that on another shelf. And then after that, I have these 2 shelves are my fabric that's separated into color groups. You can see my blues and aquas, my pinks. Let me get a little closer here. Behind my cute little pin cushion. This drawer that I'll use for something someday. See if I can take this off. Back here, I have some other things stored, and I have my browns and oranges. A couple of charm packs, and a little not a jelly roll, but a honey bun. So those, sometimes it's just fun things to look at. Little container. I don't remember what's in there. This actually is a little box that my daughter got an orchid in, and she was done with it, and I got the box. Reds and greens, yellows, purples, grays, and blacks. There's my Fat Quarter bundle of Flea Market from Lori Holt, and just little odds and ends. Move down here, and you can start to see that this is where I have all of my fabrics that I have cut and stored as similarly to how Lori Holt does it. So on this shelf I have this container right there. Sorry, that's probably not good. This container right here is all my scraps that are trimmed in Lori Holt fashion, and these are whites and low volumes in there, and I think I have grays and blacks and browns in there as well. My rice for filling things, another set of alphabetties that I made myself. Those are for when those are my double letters, and 1.5 inch squares. These are my Lori Holt whites and low volumes. And this is a little bin where if I have scraps from my cutting of quilts that I've trimmed 1.5 inch strips or 2.5 inch squares, I put them there and then I'll sort them into bins later. And then down here you can see I've got the rest of my bins with colors. This one is yellows, oranges, and purples because I don't have a whole lot of each of those. Pinks, reds, greens, and blues and aquas. Blues and aquas is a little full, and if I can find another container I will separate those out. And then less interesting, but down here at the bottom I have extra pillows, my stuffing, and then that is a big messy bunch of fabric that needs to be trimmed and sorted into bins. But I'll deal with that another day. I really wasn't going to show you the inside of drawers, but everybody always asks, so I'll go ahead and show you. This drawer in that little white cabinet where I have my iron, I keep my DMC that are still on bobbins. Once I use them and pull them for a project, then I'll put them on a card. And floss tag. These are just some scraps of fabrics I liked. And then this just holds it holds hexagons that I should do something with, and bags and hoops and things, just odds and ends. This drawer, extra safety pins, different types of pins, pinking shears, floss tags, stuff for making floss tags and things. See what's in here. This one is all my extra threads that I have. In this drawer, we've got buttons and needles and odds and ends and bias tape makers, just stuff. So exciting. This cabinet stores some holiday mini quilts and pillows. This cabinet has spray starch, my glue gun, and a mini iron, and a basket for my linens, and ribbons, and another box of just stuff. And then lastly, this cabinet has leftover batting, strips and bits, and leftover pieces of interface, not interfacing, that's up in the drawer, but fusible fleece. I have some vinyl in here, but mostly batting that I can use for little projects. So I think that's most of my sewing area, and I hope you enjoyed that little bit of a tour. Ask me questions.